Hey, I'm JR Lay, and welcome back to another episode of the Level Up Business Podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about what it means, what it really means to build wealth, because wealth is not just about finances. It's not just about dollars and cents. Wealth is also about faith. It's about family. It's about the future that you're creating through every decision that you're making, starting today, starting right now in this very moment. That's why we're going to explore how the battles you face in business as an entrepreneur are often connected to your deeper beliefs, and how aligning your spiritual, your mental, your financial strategies can help you lead better as a leader, live freer, and most importantly, protect what matters most. Now, joining me for today's conversation is Cory Proctor. Cory is a former NFL offensive lineman turned entrepreneur and founder of Procter. Cory brings a no-fluff perspective on what it really takes to protect your wealth, grow your business, all while staying grounded in the values that matter most to you while doing all of the above. Now, before we get into today's conversation with Cory, if you're a B2B entrepreneur, I'm willing to bet that you have unique wisdom, a unique story to tell, to share, to help others grow, just like the one that Cory is going to share with you today. Now, maybe you've thought about sharing video content on social media, or perhaps you've thought about writing a best-selling book, but the problem is you let those pesky self-limiting beliefs stop you from sharing your unique wisdom, from telling your story that will help others level up their business. So if you've been thinking about how to elevate your brand to increase revenue, send me a text right now, 832-240-1922, and I will show you how easy it is for you to turn video content into a best-selling book simply by having a conversation just like the one I'm about to have with Cory. Welcome, Cory. It is so good to share time with you today, buddy.
Come on, baby. Good to be here.
Let's do this. Before we get into talking about the journey that you've been on as an entrepreneur and then where you're going next, because I've been observing some of your communication patterns, particularly on LinkedIn. I want to just take a moment to pause. What is going well for you right now? What's good in your life, personally or professionally? Start off on a positive note.
Man, we're coming off our best Q1 at work, and we brought on 6 new clients, and that's a lot for us. So for the level of work we get into and the depth and the opportunity is there to plan for them is really cool. So best Q1, and trying to hire new people on. But personally, I made a post yesterday. Um, like anybody, we get caught up in the midst. We got 3 kids, 10, 5, and 1. And yesterday put on some worship for any of the faith-based people, right? I'm like, we're like hurricanes in the morning trying to get the kids off to school and get things done and breakfast and everybody awake.
Mm-hmm.
And then our babysitter walked in and she started talking about some sort of worship artist. I hadn't heard of them, and Grace, our oldest, put it on and started singing, and it just changed the atmosphere. And I'll tell you, it's just cool because um, those are the moments that I want to live for. Is I like travel, I like all those things and experience, but that's really what the juice is worth right there. Is I want that precious time with my family, and even brothers, right? Like I like sitting by the campfire, listening to good tunes, and those are when the best times happen for me. And so I would say, like, we are in one of the best places in our lives for relationships, for our kids, friends, for people, the like-minded people that we want in and around us. And so that's what I'm thankful for. Is obviously we want business to continue to progress, but like I want good kids and a good marriage. And so we are at one of the best places we've ever been.
You bring up the idea of faith, and it's when I think about level up business, one of the things that I've been thinking about is there's 3 areas to level up: level up your mind, level up your marketing, level up your sales. But let's go back to level up your mind. One of the perspectives that we can gain here is about the renewing of the mind, the need to renew the mind. And I forget the actual scripture that recalls that, but the renewing of the mind, faith. What role has faith played in your journey as an entrepreneur over the years?
It's pretty big. I guess I'll tell you a big thing that hit me not too long ago. I can't remember what executive shared this or was some big founder, but he had basically wished anybody who wanted to go on an entrepreneurial journey and wanted to excel in it, he wished very hard times on. And it was basically of all the people that we serve and the stories and the circles that I hang in, the most successful people have gone through the absolute worst things. And um, and you better have something a whole lot bigger than yourself to carry you through those. And that's where our faith comes in. And I'll still remember Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with your heart, all your heart and soul, not on your own understanding. And that was the first time I realized, like, basically there was a God and I'm not him.
Mm.
And so I was at a point in my life where I was trying to carry everything, which I respect a lot about anybody because I don't think a lot of people in our world carry the weight that they could. And so, but I really respect the people that do. And so, anyways, it was a crushing place, but understanding that acknowledgement, it gave me so much more faith to take a risk that I otherwise wouldn't have taken. And led to incredible relationships. I've failed big in some areas, but it's played a big part because especially when I hit those walls, my sports background helps me push through those, but especially if it's something that is crushing to me, right? We've all been to that place where we've gotten that bad email or bad phone call or lost a client or something crazy, and it just sits way heavy on you. Those are the times where you're like, okay, God, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to know in this situation? And and I think that's been a powerful acknowledgement in that I'm not the one in full control of everything. I can do a whole
Mm.
lot to stewardship my business and my life, but I'm not in control of everything. And I got to have a higher power that's speaking to me that I can listen to that is not me. So that's been a huge piece of our lives.
Well, faith, they say, is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And when you think about faith, faith is also it's what it's what you can move mountains with. And I want to come back to your point about like the hard times, and what you learned from that mentor. I will tell you in the most challenging times of my business, and I would say there's been three real big trenches over the last 23 years as an entrepreneur. That's when my faith grew the most. That's when I felt the closest to God. And I would say it's this last iteration, if you will, this last valley. I had this realization of, well, what if I stayed connected and stayed close to God through the next climb to get to the next peak? What would that be like on the other side versus, oh, I make it through the valley and then I start climbing again and I start on my own will, on my own, with my own ego, my own arrogance. Um, what if I started climbing with God now instead of trying to think that I have to do it all on my own once again? How far could I climb? How far could I go? To your point, like we can carry weight that we don't even think that we can carry, but we're not the only one carrying that weight anymore. Um, and so I really appreciate your perspective on this point because it took a long time for me to start to intersect my two worlds of entrepreneurship and faith. And I would say this is still relatively new early on in my own the intersection, not new in my faith journey, but just new in intersecting the worlds together because they were separate before and caused a lot of
I think it's critical. I mean, I think if like I appreciate it where anybody's at because I've been a dummy lots of times, and but it's if you don't have any acknowledgement, our default is to ourselves, fight or flight, right? Like we have a disagreement. I want to fight you or I want to go away. And if there's no acknowledgement, a third option above that, then we won't reconcile. And anybody who's been married longer than 2 weeks knows that you don't agree on everything. So
Oh,
we better have something together that we agree on. Otherwise, that's an unequally yoked pair.
yeah. Well, you come back to your sports and being able to run through walls, and I know you went from NFL to wealth management. What inspired you to go down that path to make that transition to start working with other entrepreneurs and to help them protect and grow their wealth?
So that was a progression, just kind of like anything. When I getting into the business, I didn't think this was going to be a thing, but I had gotten into a car accident in high school, rear-ended a lady. She filed suit, and a year later, my mom's stepdad had to file for bankruptcy and lost the house and the vehicle. And I came back freshman year of college to them living in the apartment, starting over. And so when I played ball, I didn't want that to repeat itself. And so I just kind of made it my mission to learn up everything that I could about my own
Mhm.
portfolio. And I had a lady that was really great and conflict of interest. I married her daughter. And so it changed the dynamic there, but she made me good money, and I just started wanting to add other things. And eventually built up my acumen to a point where, those dumb questions became pretty smart. And so when I started the business, it was basically, hey, replicate what you did in your life for somebody else.
Yeah.
And as we progressed in the business, like most people, when we started the business, it was take on anybody that you could. Well,
Mhm.
okay, after a series of either getting burned or learning my lesson somewhere, we just turned it to only entrepreneurs, and it was like you, man. You look like me, and like your life is similar to me. It was somebody who's trying to run a business and raise their family and not train wreck all of it.
Mm.
They want to win in every category, and so and I'm not saying you can't redeem if you've lost in some of those areas. Obviously, you can, but I don't want to ruin it. And so it was basically those kind of people. So it became super dialed into somebody who owns a business, who has a family, typically some young kids, um, and they just want to delegate and grow as fast as possible, just like we do at ProCat. And it's been really cool because naturally people would think players would be my route, and we do have a couple for sure, but I love my guys, but man, they can be immature.
Mm.
And I think there's an acknowledgement because I was there, but there are people that show maturity beyond their years and people that don't.
Yeah.
Um, the younger guys can get some real shiny balls syndrome,
Hmm.
and I just found that that wasn't a path I wasn't going to pursue. I'm happy to speak into them, give them some guidance, but the person, and you can relate, I know this is, the cash flow waves that come in, really awesome month, really low month, and
Hmm.
you have a bigger, what I just found generally speaking is that the entrepreneur had a bigger respect for their finances than the average person. And now there's crazy all over, but they can
Sure.
relate to our stories, and I really like that. So it was, and selfishly, I have gotten so much from our entrepreneurs in their journey and their learning, in their groups, their masterminds, like we're a part of. And
Hmm.
and I because I hear something that you won in your business, and I try to apply it to mine.
Yeah.
And it's done awesome for me.
Hey, it's JR. I just want to thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to learn and grow together with Cory. If you're a B2B entrepreneur and want to take your business to the next level, I'm willing to bet that you have unique wisdom to share, just like Cory is sharing with all of us today. But you're letting self limiting beliefs stop you from hitting the record button on a video or from writing a best selling book. That's because you tell yourself these little lies like, I don't have time. No one's going to listen to me. I'm not that smart. The world doesn't need another book. But here's the thing, these are all lies. And I want you to stop lying to yourself right now. In fact, I used to tell myself these exact same lies. But then I had a mentor, I had a coach, David C. Baker. He told me, you're going to have to write a book if you want to grow your business. Now, I want to help you do the same. That's why I've made it quick and easy for B2B entrepreneurs to turn video content into best-selling books simply by having a conversation just like the one I'm having right now with Cory. So text me right now, 832-240-1922, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to get started in just 15 minutes. Let's get back to the conversation with Cory. I want to pause and come back to, we started this conversation unexpectedly, and I think what's interesting is the amount of faith perspective that people are bringing, or a spiritual perspective, because everyone is at a different place in that journey, but they're bringing that naturally to the conversation. And it's just interesting, I guess, what's being attracted to this idea of level up business. And what I'm finding is that really it is, you level up your mind, you level up your marketing, you level up your sales, you level up your business, you level up your life. And there's all these different dimensions to that. And to your point of the train wreck, man, I could tell you train wreck stories. I could tell you a lot of trains that I've wrecked over the years, 23 years as an entrepreneur. Um, but you get through it, you get to the other side. What's been the biggest lesson that you've learned? Because I mean, entrepreneurs are listening to this conversation, and we're all learning together. We're all growing together. And I think that's the neat thing about the entrepreneurial community, is that we do have a predisposition to quote unquote growth. What's your lesson?
In my journey, you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh man, there's lots. I guess specifically to me, I learned nobody cared about football and how it applied to their situation. Um, they care about your story, but probably the biggest thing in my path so far is relatability. How do you know me, right? Aside from the billion other people in your business
Yeah.
that is trying to get at my stuff, um, how do you relate to me? But then, like, how are you credible at all? And that's where a combination for me, a combination of my testimony, my story collides with my teachers, my mentors. And it was basically like these lined up, and people that showed up in my life uh, ended up, those were total God things, because I needed their teaching, I needed their mentorship. And so I could take that and run with it and apply it to my life and business. Um, but the biggest thing there was, it was the scripture that says, a man's gift makes him known amongst great men. And it's this picture is that if you're sitting at a table amongst like wealthy or well-to-do people, and all of a sudden the conversation gets around to you to add some input in the conversation, and you have something of real value, you get found. Or if you haven't prepared up to this point, meaning you haven't crafted your gift at all, you haven't put the effort, the work, or the study, or anything in up to this point, it's let a fool speak not at the gate, lest he be found out. Meaning, if
Mm.
you open your mouth and you have nothing of substance to share, now you're found out as a fool. And these great men don't acknowledge you. But if you have some real juice to bring to the table, that's when they raise an eyebrow and they say, let's talk. And so I guess the lesson in that is that you will get opportunities, but you better be building yourself up and eating as much information as possible to prepare for that day.
So that's actually interesting. That was another conversation that I've had on this podcast with someone we both know, Michael Pine. And we were talking about how personal development is part of the entrepreneurial journey, but it's also part of the spiritual journey as well. And let's come back to adding value here. You work with a lot of entrepreneurs. Where do you see them struggling to find balance in the areas that you speak about faith, about family, about finances, about their future? Where do you see the struggle of the balance of these areas in their own lives?
Well, I think there's two aspects. One, there's the family piece, right? I think that's the one that hits home the most, is like, how does this business and wealth play into my family? And like, are you sacrificing your family to build your business? or are you actually building your business to provide freedom for yourself and your family? And
Mm.
because there's a big difference there, right? And because there are guys that are wildly successful, or people that are wildly successful, that sacrifice everything to get there, and they're happy to do it. And or not happy, but like they sacrifice their whole family, and they have horrible relationships with their kids and everything. And so, and I don't want that. And if you want to win at your family, like let's start there. How do we manage this wealth? How do we bring the kids into the business? How do we have this conversation? How do we frame it so that we don't hand a bomb off to your kids someday
Yeah,
and screw them up? And we have, drug and alcohol abuse or whatever, that they are poisonous relationships that they can't. And they have 8 different marriages, which are real stories,
sure.
that you're spinning off to the next person. But the more practical side of that is the structure of their estate or their wealth plan. And this is where we'll come in, and this is a big differentiator for us, is that we really understand estate planning big time. And that was devils in the details when it comes to the documents. And I love
Mhm.
combing through those and finding problems. And so when we get into those structures, it's my story. Somebody gets sued and lose everything they have, or there's a wrong inheritance somewhere, and now we have a battle in court that's happening to the assets that mom or dad didn't want to happen. And
Right.
and so, we set those boundaries in place to make sure that they're set there on purpose. And I'll give you an example. So like I have 3 babies, right? A girl, boy, girl, 10, 5, and 1. And we'll use my oldest, Grace, as an example of this. My baby, that's my baby girl. Don't mess with her, okay? And I speak against this in the name of Jesus. But if she decides she wants to marry a knucklehead someday, and this guy wants to divorce her, I'll be danged if I'm going to leave half her assets, or half that part of the inheritance is meant for her, to go halfway to the guy. And we'll get into semantics in this business where it's a separate asset and definitions, but I'll challenge it because I see it all the time where it gets left in divorce, it gets left on the table for all these deals, and I'm not interested in that. And so that's one thing that's really big to me is I'm not interested in somebody else, because I've seen it in my life, in my family's lives,
Yeah.
where stuff got screwed up, and and it went to somebody else. And so Megan has had big bald lineman body. She, if I die and she remarries to some Fabio looking dude with 6-pack and abs, I don't want her thinking, or him thinking, that he's got Miss Moneybags draining everything that we've built together.
Right.
And so I want to make sure it's taken care of for her and the babies. And so, those are some practical things that we walk through that are really important for us.
Well, I really appreciate the practicality, because what you're doing is you're bringing the unexpected, the unpleasant future, um, but could be a real possibility. You're bringing that into the present moment, and then walking around that, having a conversation, having a dialogue, having a discussion, so that if that unexpected, unplanned, unpleasant future does materialize, there is a plan, there is a path that would provide guidance through that level of complexity to eliminate any chaos or conflict that would be the natural byproduct of that if you didn't have that plan or perspective in place. And I want to stay on the future just a minute, because an area that I've been exploring, and I think it's a lot of entrepreneurs have been thinking about, is navigating this future, this age of AI. And you brought up a very important point of, people connecting with you, people knowing you, differentiation. And I've seen the work that you have been doing, specifically on LinkedIn, with content, as a way to share your authentic intelligence, not artificial intelligence, but your authentic intelligence, to share your unique wisdom that is uniquely yours. It's no one else's. And that wisdom comes from your lived, your learned, your shared experiences. What what sent you down this path to make an investment in this area of your business for future growth?
Well, I think initially I was just active on it even before I got into the business. But I'm outward about my faith. I'm outward about wanting to win in your family in those areas. But um, like anybody, you kind of hesitate a little bit on what you're going to share. And I guess really this last year I doubled down on it,
Mm,
where we had started our own podcast for the firm. And through encouragement from a lot of, and sometimes I'm like anybody else, even though I'm a quick start, sometimes I got to hear it 1,000 times to do it.
right.
And so, but we started there, and then I kind of took the challenge from another really a mentor. We don't talk a ton, but Chad Willardson, right? And where it was his story, where I love hearing your stories. It was like just start posting once a day and using it like a public journal. And don't need to put anything on there sensitive, right? And obviously protect people's names and identities,
Sure.
but share stories and give some value and show up. And so it's been really cool for me because I have immediately seen the impact in my business from it. And I'll tell you, like a guy at the gym, he stopped me and I'm doing sprints on the sprinter treadmill thing. And as I'm huffing and puffing, he's like, "Hey, I've seen your stuff. I got some questions." And and I'm like, "Great. I'm not going to talk right now because I'm in the middle of my workout. Let's go eat." And so we got lunch scheduled for Friday. But that exact scenario happened earlier where a guy ran into me at the gym. He goes, "Been watching you for a while now, and I need you to meet my wife." And so that was one of our 6 clients that came on in Q1. And it was an entrepreneur that owns it's just phenomenal business right now. And they felt like they reached a cap with another firm. And
Yeah.
so they came in and it was no brainer, and they came on board. And we found through some digging, we found estate planning issues and among others, but that was a critical thing for us is, we want our babies taken care of. And so, they came on from, but that led a lot of that. There's a whole lot that plays into it, but I basically, I wanted to live in your back pocket if I could.
Mm.
And I'm not going to push my business forward or my family forward and grow this thing and continue to get the word out if you don't see me on a regular basis and know what the heck my voice sounds like.
It's your voice, your little, like your what it sounds like. I think that's a fantastic point for other entrepreneurs listening to this, because this gets into human relationship that has stood the test of time. It's interesting when I work with teams and organizations and entrepreneurial leaders, I ask them, well, what is marketing in one word? If you could just define marketing. And the vast majority of them, their mind goes to what I would view, and it's in a triangle, it's the communication layer. And there are 4 ways to communicate. And we can go back and study anthropological history with this, but essentially you have pictures, cave paintings, basically, iconography. And you see that even today, like the emojis. It's the mind can process an image 60,000 times faster than the written word. So you have pictures. You have voice. So stories and narratives were told that way up until about the 1500s. And in the 1500s, the narrative structure began to change because that's when Gutenberg invented the printing press. So now you have the written word. So now you have pictures, you have voice, you have the written word. But when you tie all of that together, you get video. And so that adds another layer of dimension of communication. And so, yes, there's a communication layer, but what does it require to be a good communicator? You have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You got to listen. So that's the foundation, if you will.
Mm.
But then at the very top of this, marketing in one word, the way I defined it, is influence. Because marketing is influencing some sort of a behavior over a period of time. And to your point, your example of, I was at the gym. This guy came up to me. I've been seeing your stuff. I have questions. All of that was being done outside the traditional context of space and time. And I get this is very philosophical, but it's just the way that my mind perceives the world, because what would have been something that was not possible 5-10 years ago because then you have to get the social norms of everyone is using this as a new connection layer, but the rules don't change. All relationships come down to two things: connection and conversation. But there's another element that we have to add between the communication layer and the influence layer, which is attention. And so, because if you don't have attention, you can't influence anyone. So, but it comes down to the value creation piece of this, as you've already helping, you're creating, adding value to this conversation. So, which I'm so grateful for. It comes down to unique wisdom, and you're even sharing, okay, I'm doing these things. It's having a direct impact to my business, which is interesting because it's happening at a local level, even for that matter. It's happening in the physical world. You're taking a digital relationship, someone you may or may not know very well, but you're just continuously there. You're placing deposits into the trust fund that sits between their ears. And over time, you make enough deposits, there'll be a shift of behavior because in some way you've shifted the belief here. Now, my question to you as we start to wrap up, you've been making investments of time, of energy, of effort into content, social media, LinkedIn, etc., the podcast. Were there any self-limiting beliefs that you had to overcome to even get into this to begin with in the first place?
Dude, oh man. I I mean, you know this. I mean, you reach this writer's block. I'm like, what the heck do I have to say right now? It might be nothing, but I got to recall something and give some juice. And it's such a challenge, but it's also feeling like this is going to be trash. This is stupid. I don't need to post. This is a dumb thing, or this is an obvious thing, which you would be blown away by what's obvious or what's not obvious, or what somebody grabs onto and needs. And I had the post yesterday about sharing that worship at home. I was just like, man, because it centered me so well that I was just like, man, I'm just gonna kind of post something real that is like less how to and more something that hit me this morning that was really powerful for me that I needed, and immediately had people firing off in our mastermind group and outside of that. They were like, dude, I needed this. Thank you for doing. And it's just like, you have no idea where people are sitting at in these conversations or in their head. And so I appreciate it because that affirms like any self-limiting belief that I've had on it, where I can delay, but I tell you what, when I do decide to go, one of my best, I guess, best strengths is I'll just go even if it looks stupid sometimes, and we'll course correct along the way. And that comes from a little bit of a fear from this is I love this thing. You cause more damage by doing nothing than by doing the wrong thing. And I I'm like, so I can't have more damage from me sitting idle and my wife not seeing me go battle for her. And so I got to go do that.
Well, there's a bit of a warrior perspective here because you got to show up. And sometimes the biggest battle that we got to do is the person that was looking back us in the mirror. And to your point of fear, I read a fantastic book, 2017, and it was the right time to read the book. It was a book written in 1937, not published until 2011, called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, which everyone knows Napoleon Hill for Think and Grow Rich. I'm like, no. It's okay book. It's a good book. Outwitting the Devil is a fantastic book on the power of fear and how much fear does hold us back. And so when you think about these self-limiting beliefs, I've been tracking them in conversations I've been having with entrepreneurs, who, yes, they're like, I want to do what you've done. They want to do what I've done. They want to do the podcast thing. They want to do the video thing. They want to do the book thing. But then I'm like, so what's holding you back? And they're like, well, I don't have time for social media. And I keep a list. They think that, well, the world doesn't need another book. What do I know? They think I don't have a big enough audience. They think I don't want to be an influencer. They say, well, people are going to find out that I'm a fraud. I'm like, wait a minute, you've been doing what you've been doing for 20, 25 years. And we begin to devalue what comes so naturally to us because it's what we do on a day in and day out basis. I'm been the same way, and I've had to have my own mentors and my own coaches call me out on my own blind spots here. And I think that's where this idea of community is so critically important for entrepreneurs, because they see things in us that we can't even begin to see in ourselves. And you're doing this even with them and your clients of working on the financial side to uncover and just shine a light. Just shine a light on the blind spots. Because once we put a light on the blind spots, that's when we can go to work, start to fix that. Sometimes it's quick. Sometimes it might take a little bit longer. As long as we're making progress, we're going to continue to level up, elevate, continue to grow together. So, Cory, I really appreciate your story and perspective you shared today, bud. Thank you.
Heck yeah. No, this is awesome. I really appreciate it.
As we start to wrap up, you have an entrepreneur who's watching, listening. They want to continue to elevate. They want to continue to level up. What would you recommend they do next so that they don't get stuck? They keep taking action. They keep battling, like you were talking about before.
I would say get in a group. I'm like, you need the right people in your life influencing you, and you are who you hang with. That's just the fact of the matter. And I remember that even in college ball, where I moved into the starting lineup, and my strength coach says, you need to be lifting with the starters. Like, I know you have your friends who are backups, but you're a starter. Lift with the starters. And the same thing in our world is like, you want to be an entrepreneur, I need to be with someone who's better than me. And so get in a group that can challenge your thinking, to get you outside. And that's been a big deal for me. Is I got to have somebody who's getting me outside, who's holding me accountable, and can give me a little juice that I can move forward. And it doesn't have to be somebody in your field necessarily, right? But I got to have somebody that I got to be calling back on, and hey, what'd you get done this week? And if
I
you
want
don't
to
have
build upon
anything,
that thought.
that's bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I want to build upon that thought because you mentioned challenge your thinking. From my personal experience, I think it's even deeper than that. I think it's challenging your beliefs, because there's this, and I wrote about this in Banking on Change, there's this belief to behavior spectrum to where our beliefs are what influence our behaviors. But in between that, you have the thoughts, you have the feelings and the emotions, you have the actions, which become the habits that become the behavior that we repeat over time. And the fact that 95% of what we do, our behavior, runs at a subconscious level that we're not even aware of. It's challenging the beliefs that we have. And then just, you know what? That belief served me. It's time to get a new one. It's time to, and by doing that and having others in our lives, that's how we elevate. That's how we level up. If someone wants to elevate and level up with you, what's the best way for them to reach out, connect, say hello, since they've been listening to our conversation?
Yeah, go check LinkedIn. Follow me on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, all those things. You can go to the site, procapitaltx.com, and check us
What about
out
the
there.
podcast?
But
How can they tune in and listen and learn from you with the podcast?
go to the website. We have a blog tab deal that Chris, our gal, puts up there. And so she puts the podcast on there. We do the long form and short form on YouTube, and clip those up and put them on social. So go check those out. It's Wisdom and Wealth, the Pro Capital Show. And I love it because we talk to entrepreneurs or people that have just done crazy cool things. And I like those people, and those people that have taken the risk, and I want to live big like them.
Absolutely. So go check out Wisdom and Wealth. Connect with Cory, learn with Cory, grow with Cory. Cory, dude, thanks so much, man, for joining me for another episode of the Level Up Business Podcast.
JR, you're a stud, brother. Thank you.
Appreciate you, bud. I want to thank you again for joining me for another Level Up Business Podcast. Now is the time, right now, at this very moment, to stop letting self-limiting beliefs hold you back from helping others by sharing your unique wisdom, just like the unique wisdom that Cory shared with all of us today. That's because there are people in this world who need your help. They need your authentic intelligence. They want to watch your video. They want to read your best-selling book. So text me right now, 832-240-1922, and I'm going to show you how quick and easy it is to elevate your brand, to increase your revenue by turning video content into a best-selling book.